What up, good people? Welcome back to the channel. I hope all of y'all are doing well out there. So what if I told you that you could get a Fuji look on your Sony camera? Say what? I can get a Fuji look on my Sony camera? That's right, you can. Well, hey man, don't keep no secrets. Tell me how and tell me now. I'm getting to it, man. Let me talk to the people. I'm going to get to it. Let's get into it. Now, to get us started, some of you might be wondering, why would you want the Fuji look on a Sony camera? Others of you who clicked on this video may already know the reason. Sony has a reputation for providing a really crisp, sharp image. It's also been known to be too clean, too clinical, a little soulless, a little lifeless. I don't think it's that. I think it's just more commercial versus Fuji, which is a little bit more narrative, more filmic, more cinematic looking. But Sony just has a cleaner look to it overall. And so what we're really trying to do is take the clean commercial look of a Sony camera and really try to convert it into a more cinematic, filmic, narrative look that Fuji provides, all in camera. And so there's actually two ways to do this. The first way is a little bit more involved, and that involves using Sony's picture profiles. This is your S-Log3s, your S-Cine tones, basically the looks you really want to use for video, but you can also apply it to photos as well. And with this method, you can actually be a little bit more precise in how you're dialing in the look, but it's a little bit more technical. Like look at things like knee, like gamma, very technical terms that takes a little while to understand. Also with picture profiles, it's going to bake the look not only into video, not only into your JPEGs, but also into your raw images. And so you wouldn't really be able to revert your image back to that clean Sony look if you wanted to start from square one and just re-edit it to your own liking. Now, the second way is the way that I'm gonna focus on, and that's using Sony's new feature called Creative Looks. This way is a lot more straightforward, and it just bakes the look into your JPEGs. Your raw files will still be that same clean Sony look, so if you want to go back and edit those, you can. And technically you can shoot video with the Creative Looks on, but it just doesn't afford you the editability of shooting in something like an S-Log3 or S-Cine tone when you want to push and pull in the color grade. But getting more into Creative Looks, what they are is basically Sony's version of Fuji film simulations, but they don't actually leverage film stocks like Fuji cameras do. But they do allow you to give a different look to your photos that's outside of the Sony standard look. Now, most Sony E-mount cameras, they do have the standard creative look, so everything from standard to natural to portrait to sepia to black and white. Most Sony cameras have those creative looks. But recently, Sony added some new creative looks to their most recent Sony cameras. I actually put a list of those cameras here on the screen just so you can check and compare and see if your model has the new creative looks. But those looks are the FL look, the IN look, the SH look, and the VV2 look. And what I love about these new looks is that they actually get you a lot closer to getting the Fuji film simulation look on your Sony camera. But you can get it even closer. Each of these new creative looks has a base look, but then you can go in and change things like contrast. You can change highlights, shadows, fade, saturation, sharpness, that's a big one, sharpness range, and clarity. And in addition to modifying the creative look settings, you can go into your Sony menus and change things like your dynamic range optimizer and playing around with your white balance in order to get the more specific Fujifilm recipe look that you're going for. Notably, there are some settings in your Sony camera that are missing that won't allow you to fully realize the Fujifilm look, namely settings like grain, color chrome effects, and color chrome effects blue. So just know, you won't get all the way to the Fuji look, but you'll get dang near close. And speaking of getting dang near close to the Fuji look, I just want to shout out a photographer and fellow YouTuber. His name is Deni Alex. He has actually done a lot of the legwork in creating Fuji film simulations on Sony cameras. He's done this with both picture profiles and with creative looks. And he's even made a website about it where he's documented his experience, documented his findings, and also provided some recipes for others to use on their Sony cameras. And he was definitely a good resource when it came to understanding how to use creative looks and really get a starting point when I started to create some looks of my own. So I will definitely leave links to his YouTube channel and website down in the description so y'all can check him out as well. But as far as actually getting out and using these creative looks on actual photo shoots, I took my Sony a7C II out for various shoots at various locations, shot in various different scenarios, and I was out there just experimenting, and I learned learned a lot. For starters, I will say that the creative looks workflow on a Sony camera is not as set it and forget it, not as streamlined as the Fujifilm simulation, Fujifilm recipe workflow on a Fuji camera. And the reason why is because some of the settings are actually divided away from the creative look. On a Fujifilm recipe, you can bake in things like your dynamic range and your white balance, but with creative looks, the white balance and the dynamic range settings are separate, so you would have to modify those things separately as you're out and about shooting. What I would recommend is to take those three settings, your creative looks, your dynamic range optimizer, and your white balance, and put those settings in your quick function menu so that you can access them quickly and change them on the fly. Another thing that I did was I really dialed in all of my creative look settings, and then I mapped them to my custom settings on my PASM dial. So number one was actually the traditional Sony look. I wanted to keep that as a constant, but then for the number two setting, I dialed in my FL and my IN creative looks. And then on the number three setting, I dialed in my VV2 and my SH creative looks. And then I also set some custom white balances for myself. So I had my regular daylight, my 5500 Kelvin, but then for my second custom white balance, I dialed in something that was a little bit warmer, had a little bit more amber tones to it. And then for my third custom white balance, I dialed in something that was a lot cooler. So I had a little bit more of a teal look going. And so just playing around with those settings really allowed me to get some different looks while I was out and about shooting. Now, to be honest with y'all, I did not use all of the creative looks equally. I mainly used the FL and IN creative looks. There were times where there was a little bit more color in the scene where I decided to use the VV2, the vivid creative look, and it really worked out well, especially at the flower fields. But I mainly stayed in that FL and IN creative look. And I think I was able to get some really good results. I will say, I'm not gonna say that my images looked exactly like a Fuji image, but there were times as I was going through the images, culling through them, I was seeing images that I was like, that looks like classic chrome, or that looks like nostalgic neg, or that looks like some other Fujifilm simulations. And it got really close. The creative looks really allowed me to desaturate some of the colors in my shots, fade the blacks, dial the sharpness all the way down, which is a huge factor in Sony images, and even apply some color shifts with my custom white balances. And I will say the images that I was able to get from it straight out of camera definitely looked less clinical and definitely had more character to them. And the good thing is I still have the raw files, and these creative looks aren't really built into the raw files. So I still have that clean Sony image in the raw file. I can go back and edit that if I want to do that. But then I have my baked in looks where I can just grab the JPEG, quickly share it to social media, or share with one of my friends or a model or someone. And looking at the raw images next to the straight out of camera JPEGs, you can really see the effects that the creative looks are having as far as moving the images from that traditional Sony clean commercial look towards that Fujifilm creative narrative cinematic type of look to your photos. So I think it's the best of both worlds. I cannot say that would be the case in the opposite direction. I think you can get a Fuji look in a Sony camera, but I don't think you can get a Sony look in a Fuji camera, if that makes sense. But yeah, y'all, I think the creative looks feature is a very viable option for helping you to get the Fuji look on your Sony camera. I have by no means perfected using creative looks. I'm gonna keep using it. I'm gonna keep trying. I'm gonna keep experimenting just with different settings. And yeah, I think ultimately I will get that perfected recipe one of these days. But what do y'all think? Do you think creative looks would be useful for you on your Sony camera as far as getting that Fuji look, getting different looks, getting a less clinical or less commercial Sony look on your camera? Go ahead and let me know what you think down in the comments, and I'll be checking them out. But with that said, that's the video, y'all. If you like this video, go ahead and drop it a like. Drop the like. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Hit that button. Go ahead and hit that notification bell to stay informed on any future content I got coming up. Notify yourself. Unbelievable. And until next time, y'all, I will catch y'all later. Yeah.